Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Paulette, and I'm the host now. I was the co-host. I'm the host of Creative Mornings Munich. I'm very happy to be here this morning, and thank you to all of you for being here today, supporting these virtual sessions that we are having in Creative Mornings Munich.
So our theme for this month is Dare. Dare is explained by dare is an act of faith, and at the core of daring, you will find bravery. So I'd like to ask all of you in the audience to unmute yourself for a second and give Melanie a round of applause. Melanie, the stage is yours.
Hello, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm blushing a little bit. I hope you all had a great morning, and I'm super excited, super thrilled to explore with you the topic Dare to Lead, actually, how to become a great creative leader. I hope you had a coffee or a tea this morning. I already had started mine, not finished yet. And you can have a croissant on the side while we explore the topic together. The picture in the background you can see, I actually took in 2017. I was in Nepal, and the mountain in the back you can see is called Manaslu. And I dared to go on a journey to not climb the whole mountain because it's pretty high, but up to 5,000 meters. And even if the picture itself looks very breathtaking, somehow idyllic, the journey really was not easy, and I overcame many, many hurdles. I can also reflect back to my leadership journey so far and hopefully continuing further up in the future. So I will take you today along my own journey and give a few examples where I dared to lead, share a couple of tools with you that you can apply, and actually ask you to also dare to lead, because we need more creatives and more and more designers in leadership positions. So let's see the clicker. That's me, a short intro. Well, Tatiana gave an amazing intro. So I'm a designer by background, and I've worked in the design field for about 13 years now in various positions, from leading teams, leading projects, growing teams, design teams, and creative teams, to serving on a board of directors. And daring to lead for me is really to being comfortably uncomfortable, to really take a leap of faith and continuously grow your impact all the way to the organizational level and beyond. And today we explore actually what the different impact levels are. And no matter where you are along your journey, there are things we can share together and explore together how you can grow your impact. But before we go into the topic, let's get to know you. Who are you? And you can use the chat for that. And actually, I ask you to describe what's your experience with leadership. Do you have any experience? Have you led projects, people? Have you led other leaders or even organizations, just to get to know each other a little bit better and see who's in the room? And then you can also connect with each other, seeing what your different leadership experiences are. So we have leading projects and people. People and projects seem to be the driving two topics. Projects, again, nice. Mm-hmm. So we have a really good overview of especially two levels, leading projects and people. Seem to be a big topic. But there's so much more before and after it, and let's explore together what it actually means. So I very much agree with Brené Brown. She's American professor and author, and she says, a leader is anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes, and who has the courage to develop that potential. So today it's really about daring, having the courage to lead. But two messages within this quote are really important. Leadership is not about a title. It's really about people and how you interact with people and finding the potential in people and processes. But even people are part of the processes. So leadership is in the end people business. And this is one of the two core important things I learned throughout my own journey. It's really first and foremost about people and the things you do every day, how you show up, how you communicate, how you interact with others really influence your career trajectory. So today I apply a little bit my design persona and heart in myself and also my strategic background, strategically thinking about career development, how you can really grow your impact. And it's not that you can pave out your way. Most opportunities come unexpected, and it's rarely a straight line for people in their career. But you should be aware where and how you can actually have an impact and grow your impact. This awareness will help you to grow your own leadership journey and pave your own journey on the way. So this is a picture that helps me a lot. And from personal, we heard a lot of people talked about leading product, services, projects, leading teams and operation, but there is even strategy beyond or whole organizations. But one thing that's common, no matter on which level you operate, is that it's all about people, their goals, their interest, how you empower and enable them. And their interest, obviously, and the goals change along each level. So being aware on which level you operate can help you really along your way. Let's start with the bottom thing. The first person to really understand and foster is you. Before thinking about others, start with self-leadership. How do you lead yourself? What are your strengths? What are your motivations? Do you know your network? What is your passion? What might trigger you, or where do you have your weakness? And ideally, you can surround yourself with people that make up for your blind spots and help you to reveal your blind spots and become a better version of yourself. And this is really important because before leading anyone else, you have to be comfortable with yourself and understanding where your own strengths lie and your own motivation. And a tool that helped me along the way actually is asking for growth feedback. Instead of asking for feedback that's backward looking, ask for feedback that's more forward looking to, on the one hand, really identify the growth opportunities. Ask people around you, you work with, that know you, where do they see the opportunities for you to grow in your role, in your work, or your impact? Ask them where they think you could leverage your strength even further. And find out who you could learn from. If they have any recommendations, which person would be best to learn for in order to further grow in your career. And these three pieces, really identifying growth opportunities, your own strength and how you can leverage them further, and finding a support network, someone coaching you, mentoring you, is the basic steps in order to move forward. And obviously, you will get diverse growth feedback, and it's up to you what to take in and what to reflect and which path to take, because in the end, it's really about where your passion leads you, where your motivation leads you, and how you can have long-term motivation over years and decades even. In the end, it's about daring to be you. don't try to be someone else or follow any abstract leadership description. Be you and authentic, because in the end, there are two things why daring to be you is core and important. On the one hand, leadership is people business, and people are damn good to look behind the facade. They will see if you hold up an image that's not really you. And leadership journey is a midterm and long-term journey. Therefore, you have to be yourself in order to succeed over years and decades, and to really find your own unique path and keep the motivation up, not to the next role or title, but overall your whole career. When we look at the second step, it's a lot about product, service, and projects. And over the years, I personally gathered a lot of experience in my craft, leading projects, leading smaller teams, project teams, to develop products and services together. And first, I had the biggest impact through my own craft, through the work I did. And then slowly I scaled it through coaching and enabling and teaching others on the way, help others to embrace their own skills and foster their own skills. And at some point, I actually moved to the US in order to do my master's. And I had the opportunity to teach undergraduate students. And what actually happened was the first time when I really experienced what it means to empower others, because it's solely about coaching and fostering others. It's not about the impact my work had anymore. And along this way, when the first time I was asked to teach, I was thrilled. Obviously, I loved design. I loved my craft. I worked in it. But at the same time, I was thinking, okay, I don't have any experience in teaching as such. I didn't study to become a teacher. Am I doing this right? It's the first time I'm doing this. Will the students who were my age, sometimes older, would they trust me? Why should they trust me to be a good teacher? And I felt really insecure and didn't really know how to go about it. So there I was on my first day of teaching, and I was like, okay, I'm going into the room, and basically I cannot pretend I ever taught a lot of classes before and I have a lot of experience. This is a learning journey for me. So I decided to go in and treat all the students like grown-ups on an eye level. I told them, that's the background I'm bringing. I'm really confident that we can learn. I can learn and enable you when it comes to the craft. But to be very honest, this is the very first time I'm teaching a class. And bear with me along the way. I really need your feedback to also grow into this role. Let's make this a journey together where we can learn from each other what I can improve along the journey. And now talking about it, it sounds really easy. And yeah, you just go in and say, hey, I'm doing it the first time. But in reality, I felt really vulnerable in this moment. I didn't know how the students would take it, if they would even follow me, if they would even trust me on their journey. And I don't know how it would have turned out if I just pretended I have done it several times and I'm perfect in teaching. But what I know, because I dared to be vulnerable throughout the very first class and I kept teaching afterwards, I really iterated my own teaching skills and learning skills. And we had a really good experience together, not only the students, but also I myself. So it's really hard, but dare to be vulnerable and open, because it pays back in the end. When reflecting, we start often leading teams, and you also mentioned that many of you have experience with leading teams. But before going into it, what made you personally become a creative? Maybe you can also write it in the chat again, and we get a little bit of an understanding what your reasonings were, or what made you become a creative. Is there anything that motivated you to become a creative? The love to creating stuff, great. For me personally, I also knew really early the passion for design, nice. I knew really early that I want to do something creative. I was not sure that it was, we have horrible products, the people and community, problems make me creative, the people. Yeah, it's a lot about people design, curiosity. When you look actually into some studies why people became creative, a lot of them said they had a passion for the craft. And some of you also mentioned it. They love to create stuff. You have a passion for design. Some people might have gone the more traditional way and studied it, or you changed your career on the way because you followed your passion for the craft itself. And when you look at it, some of passion for the craft and creative work really led us here. And maybe someone started law because their parents told you so. It's rarely if you study design or anything creative related that your parents say that's what you should do because it's a great job. Some care for people, and that might also be a secondary reason why people really work in design, because they want to improve people's interactions with products, make them better, make services better. But if people truly learn about making people better, they might have studied medicine. And if you just do something in order to make money, then it might have been business. So what a lot of creatives have in common in the end is really the passion for the craft and executing the craft. And there might be a lot of other secondary reasons, and working in collaborative environments with people. And actually, that's also the tipping point or some hurdle we often stumble over together. I really much love this visualization by Andy Pulane. He calls it the design leadership dip. And I personally also went through it. So over the years, I really fostered my craft, my tools. I knew the tools in and out because I worked with them every day. Extensively and grew my skill level from novice to a master level. And then I started, because people start looking up to you, I started into design leadership slowly. And at the beginning, I learned it, so I was not great. But what happened, because I did a lot of other things, is that I didn't execute the craft anymore. I didn't spend the whole day doing craft work, and rather increase the work in other areas, facilitating teams, facilitating processes in order for other people to grow. And what happened? Slowly, I decreased my craft a little bit because I didn't train my craft muscle, and increased my leadership skills at the same time. But there was some point where I was not great at craft anymore, or like at executing the craft anymore, but I was not the world best design leader. At the same time, I was like, okay, what am I doing? I feel not great or comfortable in any of these. And this was the dip a lot of actually creatives go through when they start moving into leadership positions and getting rid of doing craft work less and less themselves. And there's a lot we can do on the way, because in the end, leading creatives, you can still help your team create great creative work, great design. You don't need to know the latest tools or the latest tricks and do it yourself. You can help by establishing a design practice and culture with rituals like design critiques or any other, a culture that really fosters creativity, create a room for continuous inspiration that your creatives can grow in your team. And in the end, you bring a buckload of experience only because you don't execute it anymore. You still know the impact of great design. You still know what great creative work in your field looks like. And you know that you should get rid of the things I like. We're all passionate about our work, so we create our little babies and we really fall in love with them, with our own work. And you can help them to really reflect on their work by asking that, how does this fulfill accessibility guidelines? Or how does it communicate the product vision? Does it delight the right user group? Sometimes people, when they design their own work, they think they are the user, but often they are not. So it really doesn't matter if you personally like it. It's really about the people you address. So helping your team uncover their own blind spot because they fall in love, we are passionate about the craft, is something everyone benefits from. Furthermore, you really facilitate the people in the process in the end, because it's really not one single person's work. Usually you work in a team and everyone tries to bring the best on the table, and ensuring that it all fits together and people can work best together with their own strength they bring to the table is something that really helps you in leading your creative team. So dare to let go. You don't have to do everything on yourself. You can't keep piling up new things you have to do because the day only has so many days. But help enabling others and focus on becoming a great creative leader. Doesn't mean that you will never do any crafts work anymore, but it certainly means you will do it less and less, and your muscle is not as trained. It's like sports. If you don't run every day or every week or whatever you do, it gets harder and harder over time, but you can pick it up. So dare to let go in order to move on also in your career. And then there's the next step, when actually design leadership becomes leadership. You move from not leading creative teams anymore, but multidisciplinary teams. And this is the second transition that puts a lot of us out of a comfort zone. We're not familiar with the territory anymore. We haven't explored it. We are not good in business, marketing, development, technology yourself, but you might lead multidisciplinary teams. And for me, I went through this a couple of times in different steps along the career, but this was when the true imposter phenomenon kicked in, because I could not even comfortably talk about the topic anymore. I had a totally different background, and this transition was hard. And one time I went through this transition was especially about 2.5 years ago, when I was approached to join the Futurist board. As people talked to me and said, oh, you would be a good fit. They're looking for someone. And I was really unsure, because I'm a designer by background and by heart, and it's my passion. Why me? I've never worked on a board. I don't have a business background like the normal people who serve on the board. And I might have gained some strategic and business experience, but I certainly compare with what they are doing. So I was not sure if I can do this or if I'm ready for this. But what I realized in my conversations on the way, it was not to replicate the other people on the board. It was to bring a new perspective, my design perspective, my design approach to solving problems. And that's one reason why we need more designers in the C-suite or in really higher positions in companies. There's a McKinsey study that says that when companies excel at design, and with excel at design, I mean not in execution roles, but really make them part of the leadership teams, then the revenues of companies grow twice as much, and the shareholder return grow twice as much compared to industry peers. So this shows actually even in numbers, and for business-minded people that is important, that there is a value to bring design to the C-suite. But what is it exactly about? On the one hand, I believe that in the C-suite, it's a lot about framing strategic questions and approaching and answering them. And when we look around in the world, we have a lot of bigger problems to face. Climate change is one of them. Caring about people becomes more and more a core topic for big organizations. It's not only about return of investment anymore. There are a lot of other topics they need to tackle. And designers, due to their approach and their empathetic mindsets, they can bring users' perspective, people perspective into discussion, even society perspective, in order to create people and society-centric strategies. And this is just one point. A lot of the big challenges nowadays in the world, they require innovation mindset. You can't continue solving problems like we had to. They become more and ever increasingly complex. And in order to help organizations and companies to stay resilient, to be relevant continuously also in the future, they need to develop their visions further. And they need to create new and more innovative customer value propositions. And that's also something where the design approach and mindset comes in and can help with. So there are a lot of perspectives we as creatives can bring to the table in the C-suite in order to develop more well-rounded strategies in order to make companies more successful in the future and help them along their journey. So now I jumped, dare to not know. Because when you come to these tables, it's not about to replicate the knowledge they have. Obviously, you will learn things along the way, but you bring your own perspectives to the table. And that's what it's important. If they have the fifth person telling them the same, using the same tools, methodologies, using the same perspective, nothing changes. But it's your new perspective you can bring in. And you don't need to know exactly everything the other people know. Just bring your knowledge to the table, because that's why you might be invited to the table, or that's why you can make a bigger difference compared to all the other people on the table. So my personal mantra is not knowing is a sign of, not knowing and asking is a sign of strength. Not knowing and not asking is a recipe for failure. Obviously, I was in a lot of conversations where I had to get familiar with certain terms and approaches, and I just asked. And I got an answer, and that's how I learned along the way and acquired more knowledge, but could still bring in my own background. When looking at leadership, like we said, it's a people business. And there are many ways you personally, no matter where you are along your journey, you can increase your impact beyond the pure application and execution of your craft. You can easily start mentoring others who have a little bit less experience, get involved in improving design operations, or help develop a design vision or even business strategy. No matter where you are on your journey, there are really multiple things you can do in order to really make a difference and grow along a leadership path in your career, from leading yourself all the way up to leading the organizations. Don't stop at leading projects. Unless that's your passion, then that's perfect. But if there's something else that inspires you, dare to move further, also out of your comfort zone of the creative work solely, and increasing your reach. Many of you actually might know this picture in the background. Maybe they're not the last 1.5 years, we didn't fly that much, but this is the little pamphlet you see in front of your seat, usually in the airplane. And what it shows is how you react in emergency situations. And here you can see the oxygen mask. And one thing, when they give the introduction, they usually tell you, put on your own oxygen mask before helping those around you. It's obvious, right? You need to breathe yourself, and then you can comfortably help others around you that need assistance. And when you're in a leadership position, we often forget ourselves. We so much care about others that all of a sudden I had a lot of sleepless nights thinking about a lot of problems on the way, and I'm sure I will have them in the future. But what I learned along the way is only if my own batteries are charged, I can bring the best self to the table and really help empower others. So dare to self-care. Take the time to reflect, because only if you have the time to reflect, you can grow, right? If you just run from the next task to the next task, the learning opportunities are very low. Take the time to relax, to think, to sleep, more importantly, maybe also to daydream. It's really about recharging, because you can only empower others if you're the best version of yourself and if you feel well. Not only in the short term, but especially in the long term, because you can't run at 150% all the time, and you cannot even run at 100% if you don't take time to self-care. So in the end, the only limit to your own impact is your own imagination and commitment. You can grow a lot of different directions, what really motivates you, and even beyond the organizational level, making an impact on society and discovering ever new impact levels. So in the end, dare to lead. I really ask the creatives to dare to lead. We need your thinking, we need your passion, we need your perspective to solve the big problems nowadays. So dare to lead. And on the way, dare to be you, dare to be vulnerable, dare to let go, dare to not know, because you'll learn, and dare to care for yourself, most importantly. Thank you very much.
Great. Yes.
Bang on time. So if you want to connect with me, please do. You can always reach out to me, preferably through LinkedIn. That's where I have most professional conversations, or Twitter, or you can also follow me. I have a little, because there's more to a person than a professional life. I have a small side project called Mama Leaders, where I actually, it's a podcast where I host and interview women in leadership positions or successful entrepreneurs, how they balance family and career along the way. So if you're interested in inspiration on this hand, please check it out. But now it's really about you and starting the conversation together. I'm very much looking forward to any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Melanie. It was a great presentation. I think we have a question from Clive. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, or should I read it, Clive?
No, that's fine. I just need to show a presentable version of myself because I'm still in my pajamas, actually.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. not too much information. Yeah, super, Melanie. Really a great talk, and just what I needed this week. I think I put it in the chat as well, because it's exactly sort of the topics that are going in my head at the moment. And one big question I have, if you're sort of at the beginning of your leadership journey, you mentioned sort of the lack of craft that you're then able to contribute to directly. Would you say per se it's possible to be an individual contributor on a project, maybe to a certain level, and still be a leader, or would you say it's mutually exclusive when you really want to go down that leadership path?
I don't think it's mutually exclusive. There's always a balance. You start growing one or the other. I think the only thing you cannot expect that you are the best executor of design work and become the best leader at the same time. It's always a balance. And sometimes one is higher, and sometimes, at least to my experience, the other one is higher. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and let other approach design challenges or creative challenges their own way, because they might do it differently than you. And that's
Sure.
actually hard sometimes to let go and say, I would do it this way, because it's not about how you would do it. It's really about enabling others. So I've seen both, that people still stay in the craft field and grow along the way, but in the end, you cannot pile up. So at some point, either you balance it more or less differently for yourself, but the higher you go in impact, the harder it is to still execute the work yourself and do craft work, because there are so many other expectations and tasks that come along the way.
Yeah, thank you. And would you say, because I've sort of witnessed it in some companies, that they've got sort of this principal career path and the manager career path?
Yes.
Would that sort of answer to that question? So that the principal would still be sort of involved, maybe not hands-on until the last button, but to a certain degree. Is that something you've seen and think is a good idea?
Yes, I think it's a great idea to have different, because leadership is not only about managing people and being a manager. I think there are a lot of different good leadership paths. I myself, I have the title of design principal. And what I personally do is I stay involved in really relevant strategic design topics, and I contribute in strategic work we do actively. I'm part of the team, and I come in and help and challenge others. And I'm not only managing people. And I think there are a lot of different career paths along this way. I also know, especially this craft journey versus manager journey is a big topic, not only in design, but also in tech community I'm involved in. So how can you grow your impact along the craft path? And it also doesn't mean you do the hands-on work, but you help maybe your peers to see the bigger perspective, to challenge from different directions, to continuously learn also along this way without having to do the hands-on work in the end. So I think there are a lot of different paths, and I think that's the beautiful thing, because we need both in the end. We don't only need a people manager. There's a role and a place for all these different career directions.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Any other question? I see some comments also from Andrea and other people. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask something or comment, whatever you want to say? Okay.
Or just anyone.
Paula, it's Stephanie.
Yes?
I wanted to.
Okay.
Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much. That was, I especially liked when you were talking about when you were teaching and you kind of said, admitted, I'm doing this for the first time. I really wish more people would do that, especially if I'm thinking back to moments where I was taught. I have it goes in line with this whole, like the manager and these two paths. And I don't know if it's a question, but if I think like I've had, a phase where with like family and children, you kind of want the work-life balance, you're structuring it differently. And phases where I prefer to be like the number two, kind of being a strong number two and not being the leader with all the responsibility, but being, giving 100% and making that leader shine, but just kind of stepping. But how do you kind of say that without it being this weakness, like, because if you say, oh, I want to be the number two, I feel like because the trajectory is so, aspiring to leadership, it could be seen as like, well, don't you have the confidence, or why not, as opposed to, well, no, but I don't know if it's a question, but it's something that I've struggled with, of kind of like it not being seen as a weakness, but still wanting to contribute, but in a different kind of capacity of leadership.
I think you're touching a really, really important point, because along their life, there are different phases, and there might be a phase where your family is more important, or your personal health is more important. And I'm not talking about 2 weeks or a month. I'm talking about longer periods in your life, where maybe priorities might change, and they continuously will change based on different influences. So I even had a couple of people who told me when I internally we interviewed actually recently a couple of my peers internally to decide who to grow more in the design direction. And what people actually did, they said, okay, I love this opportunity in the future, but right now I rather want to focus on something else. Maybe it's the craft, maybe having an impact on a different level. So it's good to communicate where you want to have an impact, and it doesn't always have to be in the forefront and try it, because it also costs a lot of energy, to be honest, and sometimes it's really just not the time to do that. So I personally believe it's about being transparent and open, and not saying this is off the table until it's really the wrong path and you say you want to take a totally different path. But in the end, you still bring your experience, and this doesn't change, right? No matter which path or opportunity you take or might not take. Or if you say, okay, I step back, I let someone else step up, because I think that's also a sign for leadership, to really understand and self-guide and self-lead yourself when it's the right time for you and yourself. But make it super clear that this is not that you want to not keep developing. You certainly want to keep developing, but maybe in a different direction or in different tasks and topics, and where you can still create an impact, because there's so many ways. So I think there's no blueprint or an answer of right and wrong. And it certainly also depends on your work environment and what culture you're working in. And maybe sometimes it's even say, okay, this is maybe not the right culture for me, or the right environment, because I'm not valued how I am or how I contribute.
Thank you. Stephanie, you're still there? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cool.
You're very
Any
welcome.
other question? Any other comment or experience to share with Melanie?
I would have one more question, if that's okay.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, because I just went, no one else. The Dare to Self-Care bit, I really like it. So how do you, I mean, in a position like you are in, how do you juggle that? I mean, work-life balance might be a bit of a cliche, but you say, how do you find those spaces to self-care outside of your work environment?
Well, I can talk about some really small and simple things, but I think they all add up. I make a blocker in my calendar every week to plan the week. I make a blocker at the end of the week to reflect about the week. Like some of the things I really plan it into. I say no, and I still have to work on it and keep saying no, because usually if you make an impact and people want you to do more and more and more, and just topics come your way because it works out well. So really reflecting and understanding what helps you also in your own journey and what doesn't, and where you can find the right balance and sweet spot between giving and taking, what brings the organization along, how can you positively impact it, or the product you're developing, whatever it is, but also brings you along. Because I've seen too often people get trapped in something they're really good at, but they're not necessarily passionate about or motivated to grow further in this way. So having these continuous conversations also with your supervisors, with your boss, with your peers will help you to continuously adapt your way, because it will change. What I think I want to do or is important to me now might not be in 6 months or in 3 years. And another really good insight I was shared by a really senior person who led big organizations. And he told me once, don't think about your next step, think about the step after and what you need in order to get there. Think a little bit long term, because it might not be the straight way to the next. Your next step might not be useful for the step after, actually. So that's also how I sometimes try to reflect a little bit on my own growth, thinking, okay, what's the mid or long-term goal, instead of just looking at the next step and where to have impact. And then it's like, I think, yeah, you might know what put everything into perspective if you have children. And
Absolutely.
And you see that when I'm at work, I'm there at work. I really can focus. And when I'm at home. And I communicate that and say, okay, now I'm not there. If something burns, please call me. But unless it doesn't burn, I'm out, because there is another day tomorrow, and I will be there back 100% the next day. But we certainly don't have to have a conversation at 8 p.m. And often these conversations are not good anyway, because everyone's tired, right? Rather sleep at night, have a conversation in the morning, and you find the solutions 10 times faster.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah.
And just adding on to that, sorry.
Go ahead, Tatjana.
No, I just wanted to know, like, just adding on to that, like in terms of the phases, like, because we all have moments when we just get overwhelmed, and then we find ourselves in this spiral, and we are like, we know we're not good at the performance anymore because we're just stressed. And so I just read recently this article about that there are several levels of rest. So it's not just, oh, I'm just going to sleep and then I'm going to be fine. So there are actually, like, it's the physical rest, it's the mental rest, it's the creative rest, for instance, the social rest, the spiritual rest, etc. So is there anything particular where you, like, when you had for sure, like, these moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm just overwhelmed by everything. Like, there are people who do meditations, or do you have any exercise that you do on a regular basis which just settles you?
Yes, but I think this is very personal, and what works for me probably doesn't for others. But I'm more I'm the active person, so I can relax when I run or when I get some physical activity. I like to do yoga, but I'm not a good meditation person. I try it every now and then, and it just doesn't work for me. And I know so many people for whom it works well. For me, it's more the active part, to really go for a run, let my thoughts flow, and just think about something differently. But like you also said, there's also different levels of rest. I had a bit more than 3-week holidays this summer, and I really realized the first days I mainly slept. Whenever I could, I slept. I was so tired after the last 1.5 years, and I see so many people in my team and around me who are going through the same. They really need to recharge their battery, and it was not enough to take a week. So 3 weeks were perfect, because first I had to just sleep, and then I just got into the relaxation mode of over the next days. But I sometimes feel, for me personally, if I take 2 short holidays, it's just the first 2 days are getting used to, and the next few days is already, okay, what's coming up next week I need to work at. So for me personally, it works to have longer breaks, because otherwise it's sometimes also the work of preparing the time you go out and letting everyone take over. It's not worth it if you go for a week, at least for me personally.
Yeah, and I think everyone, like, needs to be aware when you need to rest, like, and when you need to put the stop sign up, because you also have a responsibility for yourself. Like, when you know you're overwhelmed, and if you don't communicate it, and if you don't tell it to everyone, then it just gets worse. So, well, anyway, thank you for sharing your perspective.
Yeah, we also have in what I really like more on organizational level at Futurist, we have on Fridays, we have these weekly smileys. And if people feel comfortable, they can share how they are doing, and not only in a professional life, but also how they are really doing. And it often helps if you say in the morning, hey, I'm tired, or I really didn't have a good day or week or whatever, because people also know that no matter if you might not react in the perfect way, it's not about them. You say, okay, today I'm really tired. Maybe I'm not at my best today, but at least you're open enough, and people know, and people also start being open to you. It's a two-way street, right? And they say, okay, sorry, today I'm not feeling well, and it's fine, because we all have these days, or even several days, but it helps to know in order to also maybe adapt your expectations on that day.
Great. Thank you. I think it has been a great session. We are very close to wrap up. If anyone has just a last question, can talk now, or a last comment. Otherwise, no, okay. but I think we had a lot of questions, and I really appreciate that the community had the energy and to unmute and do questions and talk about this amazing topic. Thank you, Melanie, for this great session, this great talk, so interesting and so important for the design community. I hope that you also enjoyed it, and we will be happy to soon, when the recap video is ready, we will share also via the newsletter this amazing session. So by now, I say thank you to everyone. Have a great weekend, and please stay tuned, because for October we may have a surprise. And please stay tuned on the newsletter, because we will have very interesting news for the October session. So by now, thank you again. Have a great weekend, and see you soon.
I say thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for spending your morning with together. I really enjoyed it, and feel free to reach out. I always love to connect to other people in the field.
Great. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.